And you can hear those demonstrators crowding into streets, parks, and plazas across the country today to protest President Donald Trump's administration in what's called the No Kings protests. Now, you are getting a look at action from coast to coast, including right here in the Cape Fear. The countrywide protest comes as President Trump celebrates the Army's 250th anniversary and his 79th birthday. WECT's Anaya Cromartie attended the protest in downtown Wilmington. She has more from protesters who hit the streets and those who are backing the Trump administration's policies.
People are taking to the streets to get their voices heard. It's been more than 30 years since the country's last military parade, and this year's demonstration is drawing both excitement and criticism.
I'm here with all of my people to show disdain for the current administration and responding to the fact that we will have no kings, period.
The No Kings protest comes at the same time as the Washington, D.C. military parade that's organized by the Trump administration.
I'm excited for the events and festivities of the day in Washington, D.C. I'll be watching at home.
The president wanted to commemorate 250 years of the military, which also happens to fall on Trump's birthday. But others are using this opportunity to show their disagreement for recent administration's actions.
Sending the Marines to L.A. and they detained an actual American citizen on American soil, how is that even legal?
Many protesters believe the government should handle immigration better. Recently, the administration has been cracking down on undocumented immigrants. How do you feel about the way that they're going about that?
I think that it goes against so much of our, typical processes for things. People deserve to, be represented in court, to have their safety, to, not just have people showing up and knocking on our door.
The new Hanover County Republican chair disagrees and says the administration is doing the right thing.
The focus has been on not just undocumented immigrants, but also people who have committed heinous crimes. So these are violent people who've committed crimes and are out free in the United States of America.
While the president celebrates in D.C. with the largest military celebration in decades, the demonstrations against the president haven't been seen in years as well. This movement started with a group called 50-51, meaning 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. And despite the movement, President Donald Trump still moved forward with the military festivities. In Wilmington, Anaya Cromartie, WECT News.